Well, let's try this again. Week 10 is upon us in the NFL. And Madden Madden is finally back at even. At 5-5, first time it's back at even since the end of week 1. With the correct guess of Denver versus Oakland. And this week I am doing what I feel like is a important game for the middle of the pack with Miami versus San Diego. Two teams that at the halfway point are in the middle of the pack and are have a chance to make or break their season, with Miami at 4-4 and San Diego at 4-5. Miami is on a 3-game win streak, but they are 0-3 on the road, while San Diego is 3-1 at home, but only on a 1-game win streak. So I feel like there were some other good games that they're going to happen this weekend, like Pittsburgh hosting Dallas and Seattle versus New England. But I felt that this matchup would be an interesting one to see how man predicts. So, and two teams that I have not done before, so that was another thing why I picked this. But I mean, week 10 is officially underway with Baltimore and Cleveland going at it right now on Thursday Night Football, and it's not a contest. It looks like Cleveland will lose their 10th straight of the season and be 6 games away from joining the 2008 Detroit Lions in becoming two teams 0-16, but only the third team to be winless in the Super Bowl era. I will make a mention. This is my second go around at this. I had Twitch, I love you, but I have to express my deepest concerns. So, if you decide something goes wrong again, I mean, this ain't easy. Finding 2 hours in my day to stream this, and I want to do this. I wish there was an easier way for me, but there really isn't. But I like you, Twitch, for that, but come on, please work for me this time. I wasn't too far in my first go around, but I'm hoping this go around works. Please. I haven't had an issue with you for the first 10 times, but let's not start now at the halfway point.
Give him 3 on the run there. Now they're looking at a 3rd and about 5.
But
this Charger defense just hoping for some of the
what a week it's been in the NFL. I mean, we've had an election that in America that has changed our nation dramatically, but there was more than just a newly elected president. There was more than just Senate seats in Congress on the line. There were ballots for referendums and so forth, especially none bigger, in my opinion, than in San Diego County with these San Diego Chargers, because they had a proposed stadium, new Charger Stadium, on the ballot for funding, and unfortunately the people of San Diego spoke and decided to say, sorry, thanks, but no thanks. Because the voters in San Diego County soundly rejected a referendum that would have steered hundreds of millions of tax dollars towards a stadium that the team wanted to build in downtown San Diego. Because you see, last year, San Diego, the Chargers the Oakland Raiders, and at the time the St. Louis Rams, excuse me, were trying to get their cities in the, I would say in the previous 5 to 10 years to get new stadiums built or renovations, like say you saw in Minnesota, you saw in Atlanta, Miami. Now I don't know if all those cities had taxpayer money to help build those or renovate. That's the word I'm looking for. But I'm sure there was some. But the people of San Diego said thanks, but no thanks. And when those 3 teams last year put in for relocation, only St. Louis got the approval because their owner already bought land out in Los Angeles, bringing football back to the second largest market in the nation, a city that hasn't seen professional football in over 20 years or so. And they got the approval, but in that clause, there was the option for the Chargers to join them in a few years or whatever to LA. Well, if the Chargers got a new stadium, it would left the door open for the Raiders to move back to LA as well. But since San Diego County said no, thank you for taking our money to build a new stadium, it looks like it's more or less likely that the Chargers are going to be heading up north a couple 100 miles or so. I'm not sure the distance between San Diego and Los Angeles, but it's, in my opinion, it's a little disappointing. A little disappointing to see when a professional sports team in a city, and the city says, you know, we just don't want you anymore. And it's like, I feel like that's a big economic boost when having a professional sports team, and when it loses, when they say no, we giving up on you, and it's like there's plenty of cities out there. There's plenty of cities that would love a professional sports team, and like I'm grateful that my Packers somehow for almost a century has thrived in the small town of Green Bay, Wisconsin, that has about the same number of the population of the city is about the same size that you can fit into Lambeau Field, which is funny. But I'm also grateful when it comes to because like I said, I feel like a city doesn't know what they're losing. Especially, well, for a football team, you know, who only plays 8 games, 10 games in that stadium every year, because you got, you know, 2 home preseason games and 8 home regular season games. So, but football is America's game. Baseball might be America's pastime, but football is America's game, and people, I don't know if it's more popular than ever. Yes, I know, I hear that, oh, there's ratings are dipping, but you know what, that's something a little bit different. The ratings are dipping for several reasons, but I'll get to that maybe in a little bit. But just want to express, obviously, my concerns for the San Diego Chargers in the city of San Diego. I mean, yes, they still have the Padres in the Major League Baseball, and you know, they play 81 home games every year. But I'm sure once they decide to get up and leave, it's, you know, you'll know how good you had until it's gone. So I'm a little disappointed, but I know everyone doesn't think the way I do. I know everyone's not a big, huge sports fan. I mean, it was hard enough here in the state of Wisconsin for because in the NBA, my Milwaukee Bucks, they had new ownership, and there was threats of leaving because the city and county of Milwaukee did not want to, and the state of Wisconsin did not want to help fund for a new arena. And I think it's harder for struggling teams to get new stadiums, but yet it always seems like it's those teams that get the new stadiums or arenas and, promise that they will do much better because people will want to come to this new facility, state of the art place. So, I mean, only time will tell to see if the Chargers move up north to LA. I mean, it's their owner has gotten plot land in Las Vegas. He's got more or less approval from Las Vegas, and I don't know if that was on the ballot either. So I'll have to look that up and see. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens to the Chargers. But speaking of voting, apparently we all know what Colin Kaepernick, had this big, huge deal about, he wants change. That's why he's going to take a knee during the national anthem, because it's not that he disrespects the military. It's just that there's not enough change going on in the nation with this racial divide, and people should be held accountable. But yet, this past Tuesday, he decided not to vote. Not to vote for president or any local races or whatever. He decided not to vote, and I feel like that's a big hypocrite and slap across the face. Here's Colin Kaepernick. He's calling for change. He's going to protest. He wants to see something different, and he's all talk and no, he's not. He talks the talk, but he doesn't walk the walk. So I feel like that's super hypocritical. And trying to find what this news. Yeah, Colin Kaepernick takes a knee on voting, and he looks foolish for it, and I can totally agree to that. I'm sorry, and I know there's, half of America's happy what happened, and there's a half of America that, and for those who are not happy, just take a deep breath. It's not the end of the world. You will get your chance for redemption in 2 to 4 years. But for now, your side lost, and it's time to accept and move on. So, now I don't want to deal on politics. I'm here for sports, and more sports, especially football, because sports is an escape. It's a place to bind your differences and come together for one unity or stuff like that. But I mean, Kaepernick, one or few things I've read is that the reason why he didn't vote is because both of the two major party candidates wouldn't do anything different that's going on already. So what then? Express your vote, support somebody that will help your cause, and back them up. And I mean, you saw all these celebrities, more like sports celebrities, that were behind Hillary. I don't know how many were behind Donald Trump besides Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, but surprise, surprise. But Kaepernick, I respect your First Amendment rights. I respect everybody's First Amendment rights. But if you want to make a difference, don't sound like a hypocrite. That's all I gotta say. And I'm just surprised. It's just I think I shouldn't be surprised. So, anyways, I mean, there's been plenty of things that, what else says, oh yeah, oh my gosh, don't, Monday Night Football, don't get me started on that. I did get a little chance to watch some of the Monday Night Football game between the Buffalo Bills and the Seattle Seahawks, and I mean, Seattle has a incredible record for primetime games since Pete Carroll became one thing has gone their way is the officiating, and just some bad calls that weren't there. For example, I know, poor time to take a break and take a drink, but anyways, for example, at the end, near the end of the first half, the Buffalo Bills were attempting a field goal, and Richard Sherman, which surprises me a little bit that he's on punting and kicking. For some reason, I don't know, he just didn't seem like that type of guy that would do that type of duties, but but hey, whatever. He jumped off sides, tried to block the field goal, and I do believe he got his hand on it, but then he took out the kicker, and there was a flag for offsides, but there was not a flag for roughing the kicker. I do believe Carpenter for the Bills got the ball off, but he was laid out, and even the announcers on Monday Night Football was saying, that should be a roughing the kicker, but they're announcers, they're not refs, and the ref said no. But the funny thing is, the head of officiating, after they reviewed, said, yeah, that should have been roughing the kicker. So okay, anyways, they move up 5 yards for offsides. They line up to try again, and all of a sudden there's another flag. And this time it's delay a game. And well, let's see. The referee was standing over the ball when there was like 5 seconds left on the play clock. And you can't kick the ball until he lines up. And like there was no flag thrown, but whistles blown, and so at this time Rex Ryan's just furious. And I don't blame him for getting an extra 15 yards for roughing the kicker, and then getting a delay a game penalty on when the referees either should pumped up restart the play clock, or stop the play clock. So they moved back, and in the end the Bills missed. And then at the end of the game, as the Bills are trying to get one last shot to get the win, last play of the game on the Miami is marching down the field. They have one last play, and there's a deliberate pass interference call that Richard Sherman did against the Bills in the end zone, and the referee is standing. This happens at the goal line, and the referee's standing right there, and no flags called. And I get it when, say, there's a Hail Mary, everyone's pushing, shoving, and I mean, there's rarely a flag thrown on a Hail Mary pass interference call. But I mean, Richard Sherman just laid the guy out. The referee's standing there, and he does nothing. It's like, and of course, Rex Ryan's irate some more. And nope, Seattle goes on to win. And of course, they were the home team. So it's crazy. Crazy. So, and like the one thing is, but the NFL, the great debate came, the NFL wants full-time officials. But the officials, the officiating union They don't want to be full time. They won't, because most of these guys have part-time jobs that pays just better. And apparently, but like the NBA, the NBA, Major League Baseball, their officials are full time. Well, there's so many more games that they have to referee or ump and so forth. So it is easier to have them do 80 hours, 40 hours a week, 80 hours 2 weeks. So I mean, all I want when it comes to officiating, and there's been plenty of times that the officials have, they messed up, and they're part-time, but I want punishment when the referees deliberately miscall and stuff like that, miss some calls or wrong calls or whatever. So I mean, I will side with the referee saying there's no way they can be full-time officials. I mean, maybe a handful, but like what I've heard before and so on and so forth, they just have a hard time to put in 40 hours a week. And I mean, you only referee one game a week. And there's let's see, let's do the math real quick. We got 32 teams, but you have 16 sets of officiating crews, and you times that by 16, and you get the magic number of 256. That's how many games are played throughout the NFL season. And there's 17 weeks. And then when the playoffs roll around, there's 4 games in the wild card. There's 4 games in divisional round. Then there's only 2 in the championship. Then there's the Pro Bowl, and then there's the Super Bowl. I mean, that's what, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 more games. So, and once the season's over, it's 17. Well, then you add 4 preseason games. That's 21 weeks plus what I had before. That's 5 for postseason. So that's 26 weeks. That's half a year. But still, most of these, one game a week, and then once the playoffs come, they got nothing left, and they need a day job. So, I don't think full-time referees is the answer. Full-time officiating. I feel like it should. They need to crack down, and which are the goods, which are the bad refs, and either improve the bad refs, and get rid of them or improve on them. Now, I do feel like if for some reason the NFL would have a minor league program and so on and so forth, like say NFL Junior, or when they had the NFL Europe, either have a spring league, or have a minor league that plays games during the week, say Thursday night, and they can call up and recall players, and that there's some more games referees, umps, and so forth could practice on. Maybe having that minor league would help these refs. They'll get more practice, more training. I mean, so I don't know. I'm going to side with the refs that they don't need to be full time because there's not enough things for them to do. I mean, yes, they'd be paid much more and happy and much more money, but that's not going to answer and solve all the problems. It's cracking down on the referees that make the bad calls or don't make the calls at all. Because I mean, why does Cam Newton take two nasty shots after just talking to the commissioner and no flags thrown, while say, Tannehill, he gets someone just brushes his helmet with the tape and finger, and all the referees throw flags, and he's still inside the pocket and so forth. It's like, do I feel like there's bias upon the refs? It is possible, but there should be a crackdown, in my opinion. They gotta crack that down. But oh, excuse me. Let's see, any other big news that's been going on in the NFL this past week? Romo, he's practicing, and the big question becomes, why would
really gain stature in the NFL because they can do so many things.
Yes,
they can line up like your normal wide receiver.
The Cowboys are in an interesting situation. I mean, I don't believe in losing your position due to injury, but I do believe in if you've been injury prone and the injury's been severe, that maybe just to take the season off and play it by ear and just play backup. And it's worse in my opinion, it's worse for quarterbacks. When a quarterback loses his job due to injury, it's hard to get back, especially if that newcomer, that backup, starts winning and makes everybody happier. I mean, Tony Romo was that guy. I mean, Drew Bledsoe, he wasn't really hurt and so forth, but they decided to go with Tony Romo, and Romo thrived. I mean, Bledsoe has been there before. Look, when he was in New England, he got hurt. Tom Brady, he took over, never looked back. Even with my Packers back in '92, Brett Favre, Don Majkowski, he gets hurt. Favre comes in and he just starts lighting it up, and he doesn't sit. Starts at 293 games or so, or 97 games. So I mean, sometimes it's just you gotta move on because the other guy is that much better. Not saying you aren't there anymore, but with Tony Romo, I don't think he's going to start any games this season. I could see him playing, especially if if Dak gets hurt. If he's healthy enough to play and Dak gets hurt, or the Cowboys are, 20 points ahead, put Romo in. Let's see how he can get back the way and so forth. Or say they clinch the playoff spot, home field advantage, and week 17 rolls around. Let's maybe put in Romo, but I wouldn't even risk it. I would keep Romo there and for emergencies. And this offseason for the Cowboys, make your decision then to see and so forth. But speaking of standings, I mean, what a mess the NFL is. It is a big old mess. I mean, you have several teams that know who they are, other teams that are not quite sure, and then teams we thought they were. So let's take a look at standings now. Take a look at standings, playoff race, and then we move on. We'll get to my picks, and boy, I'm a little giddy as a schoolgirl when it comes to the picks, because finally I'm above 500 for the first time, and finally there was no tie in the NFL after 2 weeks, back-to-back weeks of ties. But standings in the NFL, we start none other than, of course, in the AFC East, where the high and mighty never changes. We got the New England Patriots. They are 7-1 in the East. They're in the driver's seat, and they're not looking back in the East. They're not worried about losing the East. I would be surprised have a big old meltdown, especially with Tom Brady back and how he's playing. I don't see the Patriots. I shouldn't say I don't see the Patriots losing another game, but if they did, it'd be on the road or week 17. But they're sitting 7-1 on top of the AFC East, followed by these Miami Dolphins. They are 4-4. They're in second place, and they're scratching on the wild card. But that wild card race in the AFC is tough, and right now it's a 2-team race. But Miami's coming in at 4-4. The Bills, they after losing 2, then winning 3. No, they lost 2, won 4. No. Anyways, they're 4-5. They've been up and down this year. I mean, they were down. They lost 2 games, but then won 3 or 4, and then lost 3 and stuff like that. So, and they are 1-3 in the division and 1-4 in the conference. So they're not looking so hot within their own unless they get a run going. But then, of course, at the bottom of the East is none other than the New York Jets. What a disappointment. I mean, they were a handful of plays away. They were 1 win away from making the playoffs last year, and now they're lucky if they have a winning record. We move on to the AFC West, and here, oh my goodness, the Oakland Raiders, maybe the soon Las Vegas Raiders, they're on a hot streak. They are a big surprise, but we'll see when time comes, when the big games come. They are 7-2 on top of the West. They beat the Broncos last week, like Madden predicted, and the Broncos fall. But with their bye this week, the second place team, the Kansas City Chiefs, they're 6-2. They're only a half game behind because they've played 1 less game. But if Kansas City wins, they are 7-2, and they jump Oakland mainly because they gave the Raiders 1 of their 2 losses. So Oakland is 7-2 in the West. Kansas City sitting at second place at 6-2 in the West. Denver 6-3, and these San Diego Chargers that you're watching, they are 4-5. Still haven't had their bye yet, but I wouldn't count the Chargers out yet. They're only 3 games out of first, and they are, in my opinion, the best 4 or 5 team. It's just that they need to close out games. That's more or less is the issue. We move on to the AFC North, and what a mess. Not just the AFC North, the NFC North is just a mess as well. But AFC North, I mean, last week the Baltimore and Pittsburgh went at it, and Baltimore, after starting the season 3-0, lost 4 straight. They bounced back and they're back at 500, and now they're trying to at least take 1 step closer of regaining where they were, and they're at 4-4, tied with the Steelers for first place at 4-4. But since they have the head-to-head win, Baltimore's ahead of them. Cincinnati, they're just right behind them, just slightly behind them. If they would have won, we could have a 3-way tie for first, with the Bengals at 3-4-1, and of course bringing up the rear like they're good at, the Cleveland Browns 0-9. So we'll see if the Browns can actually oh my goodness. At the time, they are negative 105 net point difference. And they are one of two teams to be trailing in the fourth quarter. All 9 games.
to the 26.
The only other team to be trailing in the fourth quarter is Detroit. And Detroit has a winning record. So what is that saying? But finally, in the South, oh, it's not as bad, but it can be just as jumbo as the AFC North. The Texans, they're sitting on top of the South at 5-3. The Colts, they're slowly clawing their way back out of the hole at 4-5. And Tennessee is right behind them at 4-5, but Jacksonville 6-2. They're just three games behind Houston. So, I mean, Houston has a big opportunity here if they can just put out a few more wins and just keep ahead of the game. They just might hang on to the South. So, I mean, the South and the North is just a mess. But I mean, the West, they're in a mess too, but they're in a good mess. All their teams are winning. So when everything's all said and done, they will most likely have 3 teams in the postseason, and it's going to be hard for someone from the West not to make it to the AFC Championship game at least. So we move on to the NFC side, and in the East, America's team is back. They're back on top. They are 7-1 in the East. They're looking down at everybody, and they're just, it's like, what is wrong with the world? But no, good for them. I mean, they were close 2 years ago. Last year they had a setback, and this year they finally got that running back. I felt like it was a big mistake for the Cowboys to let go of DeMarco Murray. But I think they found it out last year when Romo went down. They had no running game really. So got Zeke. So 7-1. The Giants, they're not too far behind at 5-3, but they are far enough behind that it may not matter that they beat them week 1. Washington at 4-3-1 comes in third in the East, and what has happened to the Philadelphia Eagles? I mean, maybe reality has finally set in on them after starting the season. What? 3-0. 3-0. And you know, big surprise. Look at Carson Wentz. He's on top of the world. Why did the Browns trade their second draft pick? Why did the Rams not draft him? Well, now reality has set in. I mean, they were a few weeks ago. They were just they were a play or two away from beating the Cowboys, being in first place, sole possession, and now they've had a little setback, and they're sitting at the bottom of the division at 4-4. And hey, 4-4 is not so bad. The sad thing is, if that's you're in fourth place in the division, some are leading the division at 4-4 records. So, hey, we might have our first time ever that all 4 teams in a division finish with a non-losing record. But we move on to the West, NFC West, and the Seattle Seahawks. Oh, one of my least favorite teams. They just somehow know how to win, especially when the referees are on your side. But that's you already know how I feel about that. But they are 5-2-1. That tie is going to make a big difference in the long run. But they are 5-2-1. Arizona still slightly behind, but only by 2 games at 3-4-1. The Rams, they've been slipping a lot. And they're losing that race. They probably won't have lost that race for a division title, but it's mainly down to Seattle and Arizona. But LA, they are 3-5, and of course at the bottom of the West, after winning week 1 by beating the Rams in a shutout, They have lost 7 straight since. The San Francisco 49ers are in 4th place in the West. Nothing changes there. The North, the NFC North, my division, my teams. Well, my team plays in the North, and what a mess. What a mess. I mean, the Minnesota Vikings are still in 1st place in the North at 5-3. But they started the season 5-0. And they have lost 3 since they had their bye week 6. And it's mainly because that front line. And they had great opportunities. I mean, Detroit now, they're in second place now in the North at 5-4. And at 5-4, Detroit is just a half game back. They have the tiebreaker with Minnesota. So if Minnesota loses this week, Detroit has a bye. If Minnesota loses yet again this week, and if they're tied at 5-4, Detroit will be in 1st place in the North. And last time Detroit was in first place in the North was a few years ago, I think. But then 3rd place, my unenthusiastic Green Bay Packers. You know, they had a great opportunity on Sunday, taking on the Colts, and that game was over before it even began with that kickoff return. And Green Bay is sitting at 4-4. They had a great opportunity with Minnesota losing. They were 1 game behind the division leader. They still are now, sitting at 4-4. But the season's they're only halfway through the season. And they gotta start something. They gotta bounce back. Okay, yeah, okay. But 4-4, they had a great opportunity, but they just got rattled at home against a team. Their other 3 losses are credible. I mean, Minnesota, Atlanta, and Dallas are all, at the moment, are credible losses. But the loss against the Colts, that's like a punch in the gut or kick in the nads. So, and Chicago, all honesty, they're only 3 games out of first. At 2-6, they're not too far behind. If they can get the ball rolling, they're on a 1-game win streak.
And a tight game after punting last time. See if they can get something going on this drive.
That doesn't sound right. Oh, yeah, that does. They had a bye last week. That's why. They've won their 2nd game of the season. They're 2-6, and they bring up the rear in the NFC North. And finally, the NFC South. I mean, Atlanta, they are 6-3, top of the South. I mean, they were on top of the South last year as well for the first 5 weeks with Carolina, but then they tankered off. The Saints, they're making a little momentum in 2nd place in the South at 4-4. They've won 2 straight. Tampa Bay, they're 2 games out, but they're below 500. But they're tied with Carolina. They're both tied with a 3-5 record. The only difference is Tampa Bay has lost 2 straight. Carolina has won 2 straight. So, I mean, if you look at last year, look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They started the season 1-5. And everyone's writing them off. But, you know, they win 1 game. Okay, they're 2-5. They win the following week. Okay, 3-5. And, you know, another one 4-5. Another one 5-5. So, okay, they're back at 500. 10 games in, they got 6 more to go, and they're 5-5. They're 6-5, 7-5, 8-5, 9-5, 10-5, and 11-5. They almost won the West last year. They almost knocked the Broncos out of the playoffs. So, I mean, any of these teams, especially in these close divisions, I mean, except for, say, the Browns, have a shot. I mean,
We'll come back to San Diego.
Carolina's only 2 games behind, 2.5 games behind Atlanta. That's 9. That's 8. Yeah, they're only a few games behind Atlanta. In the NFC North, the Bears, 2-6, Minnesota 5-3. They're not too far behind. So it's going to be interesting in several divisions. But if we look at the if the playoffs were held today, this is who would be in. On the AFC side, obviously, we have New England would be home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Surprise, surprise, no. Followed by the Raiders, they would be the West champs at number 2. It's like for the last decade and a half, the Raiders have sucked, and all of a sudden, it just seemed like out of the blue. Hey, they're good again, because just win, baby. But anyways, then the Texans would be in 3rd place with the AFC South. The Ravens then would bring up the rear with the 4th seed at 4-4. But then, like I said, the Chiefs would be the first wild card, and Denver would be the second wild card. So if you're in the AFC East, South, and North, the best way is either win your division or just start winning, because it's going to be hard for Denver and Kansas City to lose. On the flip side, on the NFC side, the Cowboys, the winners of the East, they would have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And of course, somehow those pesky Seahawks, they would be the number 2 seed now because of the sudden downfall of the Vikings. But at 5-2-1, Seattle would be number 2 seed. Atlanta at 6-3, they would be the 3rd seed, and Minnesota, the Kings of the North at the moment, they would be the 4th seed. And then the Giants and the Redskins, 1st and 2nd wild card seeds. So in that scenario, the South, the North, and the West, you gotta win your division. But if you look at the teams in the hunt, the Broncos at 6-3 have a 1-game lead over 2 teams at the moment, with Dolphins and Steelers. They have 4 losses. Broncos have 3. So, and San Diego at 4-5. They're still much alive.
And we are back
but
here. I'm Brandon Gaudin alongside Charles
you have,
Davis, so the offense takes the time.
But once
to get going.
Was it 8 teams? 8 teams in the AFC either have winning or non-losing records. The other 8 losing records, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4 teams,
And the 8th play
or
on this
5
drive
teams,
coming up.
5 teams sitting 1 game below 500. Well, on the NFC side, there are 10 teams with either winning or non-losing records. And the Redskins at 4-3-1, that's what helps them there. They have that advantage because of that tie, but they start losing, then that tie doesn't mean jack. But the Lions, the Saints, the Packers, the Eagles, even the Cardinals, they're knocking, but the Cardinals are 3-4-1, so that's a losing record. But Eagles, Packers, Saints, and Lions, they're all scratching at the door then at the wild card. So it's going to be a tight and interesting race down the stretch for the playoff race. It's not over until it's over, and anything can happen. But I will say it's going to be tough for anyone in the AFC East to come out on top. I mean, AFC West right now, I'm going to say 3 teams. 3 teams are coming out of the West. On the NFC side, I can't guarantee 3 teams from the East are going to come out. I'm 2 for sure, and in all honesty,
Partner,
I'm not sure where that last wild card
seed
seed come, because you have two teams in the North fighting for wild card. Besides,
you can still make plays even when the other guys having success against
I
you.
don't think the NFC East is going to produce 3 teams for the playoffs, but I would say they are more likely than not, and the rest will be division champions.
Going underneath for Gordon. It's a gain of
So,
5 on the play, and that is gonna set up
let's see, we
Green
got
Bay.
12 seconds left in
Now,
this
whistles come in.
first
We're gonna get
half.
a timeout here by the offense. And with
Oh,
halftime on the
let's
horizon,
see.
they'll be out of timeouts from here forward.
Let's
So the offense
see how
took
the
timeout.
this
Looks
half
like
plays
they're
out.
ready to go as we get set
I'm going to take
to
them a
resume
quick
the
little
action.
breather as halftime rolls on, and then I'll come and do my picks for week 10. Like I said, week 9. Oh, I was so happy in week 9. Finally got a winning
Now for the
record.
offense, this is play
Got
number
above
11
500
here on this drive. It's a
for my
five-receiver set, 3 to the
overall,
left,
but
2
we'll
the
get to
right.
that in a little bit. Let's just watch see how this
3rd and goal for Rivers.
first half
He's
ends.
got time.
Oh, he's sacked and he
Rivers
gets
lost the
fumbled.
football.
Timeout? No.
So
Wow,
they stumbled
San
upon
Diego has
halftime
no
here
more
in San Diego
timeouts.
with the Chargers, the home team,
Wow.
on top. As we send you cross country to
I mean,
our
that
EA
is a
Sports Studios
big
in
momentum
Orlando
stop,
with our
especially
halftime
trying going.
report.
They could
Here's
at least
Larry
got
Ridley.
3.
Thanks, Brandon.
Nope.
Welcome to our EA halftime report. I'm Larry Ridley. The Chargers right now have a time of possession advantage.
So,
but
I
it's
mean,
not
the
left them to
Dolphins
take
are still in
control
it.
of this game. The Dolphins
San Diego
still right in this
knows how to
game
lose.
and will certainly be looking for
That-
a way to pull this one out in the second
but
half.
Be right back,
Right, let's
and
roll
then
the
we
highlights.
get to the second half of this game. Good game so far, I would say. And then take a look at my picks, all starting with Thursday Night Football. So, here we go.
Chargers take it early in the second. Gates has the catch coming across the middle, and he capped off the 8-play drive with a touchdown. They're now on top by 4. Dolphins line up at the 18. Here the defense will come up with the pick. Hayward's happy to come away with the pick, ending the drive. Now following the pick, catch is made after a quick pass, and a quick 3-play drive ends with a score. Chargers push their lead to 11. 1st and 10. Ajayi is going to stay inside after the handoff, and nobody can stop him on this long touchdown. Dolphins cutting the deficit to 4.
All right, Larry, thank you. A fairly tight game here as we get set to resume play in this second half. So both teams have their marching orders. And
Well,
we'll
that's
be
at least one
here
plus
in
side
quarter
is
number 3.
that San Diego gets the ball right away
The
in
steal
the
with a
second
few
half,
yards into
and
the end zone.
but I mean huge momentum burst. I mean, if they would have at least got a field goal touchdown lead, get another touchdown beginning of the second half, that would really put Miami in the hole. But let's take a look at this week. Last week, I went 9 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 9 and 4. And the 4 games I got wrong were one score possession games in the end. So they could have gone either way. But you know, I'm getting better. Gotta look at the bright side. I went 9 and 4. I'm 68 and 63 overall. So I'm above 500, but I gotta finish strong in these last 8 weeks or so. And I'm hoping so. As long as there's no more ties, I should be good. So we got 4 teams on byes, which means we got 14 games for Week 10. The 4 teams that are on byes are the Buffalo Bills, the Detroit Lions, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Oakland Raiders. They're not the Los Angeles Raiders or the Las Vegas Raiders quite yet. So, but the matchups we have going into Week 10, we start with Thursday Night Football. Like I mentioned before, Cleveland at Baltimore.
Dolphins bring on an extra defensive back on 3rd down.
Followed by our slate of Sunday's action. Green Bay at Tennessee. Denver at New Orleans. Los Angeles at the New York Jets. Atlanta at Philadelphia. Chicago at Tampa Bay. Minnesota at Washington. Kansas City at Carolina. Houston at Jacksonville. Miami at San Diego starts the late games. San Francisco at Arizona. Dallas at Pittsburgh. That was one game I was considering for game of the week. Then the Sunday night game, Seattle at New England. Another one I was considering. And then we wrap up Week 10 on Monday Night Football with the Cincinnati Bengals at the New York Football Giants. So we have a good handful, 2 big games on the docket in my mind, with interconference games with Dallas at Pittsburgh and Seattle at New England. But there's reasons why I didn't choose those, because I already have done Dallas a couple times. I've done New England, I think, a couple times. So and Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh at least once, but nothing against them. I mean, you'll see those teams surely if they make the playoffs when I do my playoff simulations. See how men can practically pick the playoffs. So we start with Thursday Night Football. Thursday Night Football has wrapped up. And first and foremost, I did pick Baltimore, and what a surprise. Baltimore won 28-7. Oh my goodness. The Browns lose again. What a surprise. No one. But this next game, the first game I have to pick following Thursday night, Green Bay at Tennessee. I don't know where to begin. The Green Bay Packers, they start a 3-game road trip at Tennessee. And after losing to Indianapolis last week, it was a reality check for the Packers. And when it comes to my team, I'm going to pick the Packers every time. I know they're not going to win every week. But I believe in my team, and I always pick my team. But I will say, if they do lose this week, I think I will pick against them next week, because my credibility's on the line. But it's going to be tough for me. But this is, you would think on paper, the Green Bay Packers and Tennessee Titans, when you think of the last few years, you would have to go with Green Bay. With Aaron Rodgers, that wide receiving core, and their defense. And on the other side, Tennessee, Marcus Mariota, second-year quarterback. DeMarco Murray at running back. I'm not quite sure how their defense is. But, I mean, like I said, Tennessee's at 4-5. Green Bay's at 4-4. So this is a battle of teams still trying to find their identities. And the Packers have been a little disappointed in the last few weeks. I mean, they had a close game against Atlanta that they could, if they could have stopped, they would have won. And last week against the Colts, they just weren't in it. Especially when you waste 13 minutes and only gain 3 points in an entire quarter. So, and when they had to move the ball, they could, but when they wanted to, they couldn't. So I'm going to stick with Green Bay because I believe in my team. They need to right their ship, and in all honesty, yeah, they're struggling right now. They're 4-4, but in all honesty, they could just break one loose. I mean, in all honesty, they do need a running game, and if they don't get a running game established, if it's with Ty Montgomery, if it's with, I think I heard James Starks is getting healthier, even Don Jackson for the Packers, if they can't establish a running game, they're gonna lose. So I'm sticking with my team. I'm sticking with the Packers at least for this week. But when they head to Washington and at Philly for the next two, it's going to be tough. If they don't win this game here, they need to win at least 2 of these 3 road games to stay alive in the playoff race, in my mind, either for the division or for a wild card. If they don't, I might just find that fork and poke it in them.
Never make the mistake with the slot receivers, especially the little guys like
because especially when a team is playing poorly, you don't want to see them in the playoffs. But it just seems like when they need to rise to that occasion, they can. So, but I'm picking Green Bay. It's hard. It'll be hard to pick against them. But when the playoffs roll around and they are in them, I'm not worried about that. But we're not. This is a tough game, though. Next one. Denver at New Orleans. Denver, great team. Defending Super Bowl champions. New Orleans, home. Wishy-washy. Crappy defense. I mean, Denver's plus 48 on the net points, while New Orleans is only 4. I mean, and they're 2-2 at home. I mean, they used to be unstoppable at the Superdome, but last few years they've been kind of slipping. And the question becomes, do you keep Sean Payton, or is it time for him to let go and start all over, start a new regime? Find Drew Brees' new replacement and so on and so forth. Denver's 2-2 on the road. So, but how New Orleans is playing, I mean, Denver's going to be looking for redemption after losing to Oakland. And
let's give a lot of credit to the offensive line.
I think, and I believe, yes, New Orleans is home, but I got to go with the defending Super Bowl champions in this one. They may have the lesser experienced quarterback, but they are the more well-rounded team. The Saints aren't quite. So I'm picking Denver in this one.
So nothing there, but maybe you blame the blocking.
Maybe by 2 touchdowns. At least.
All the defense. They made it happen.
8th play of the drive forthcoming, and they need 8 yards on third down.
This is going to be a tricky one. Los Angeles at the Jets.
From the shotgun, it's Rivers.
I mean,
It's out of bounds, incomplete.
Both teams have a QB crisis. Jeff Fisher is stubborn that he won't bench what's his name? Case Keenum, and won't even try their number 1 draft pick, Jared Goff. I mean, it's week 10 in the NFL. You have a losing record. Your starting quarterback isn't the greatest, and why not give the guy a shot? You're telling me 10 weeks in of the regular season, he's not ready, and then why'd you draft him? I mean, if you actually had a stabilized starting quarterback to him to polish over and so forth, I mean, yeah, okay, let him learn, keep learning, so on and so forth, but You don't know until you know. I mean, look at Dak Prescott. Everyone passed up on him, and now he's 7-1 for the Cowboys. I mean, even Carson Wentz for the Eagles. Yeah, he's 4-4. He's had his struggles as of late, but I mean, he's been stellar for the most part. And then the Jets. You had Ryan Fitzpatrick, who didn't want to sign. He wanted big money. He want big money. Money. Jets like, no. Okay, yeah, let's do this. Hey, you're our quarterback now, right? Yeah, sure. I'm few weeks ago, he finally got benched for Geno Smith because he just wasn't it. And of course, Geno, he blows out his knee, and so it's like, gotta come back to me. Look who you gotta come crawling back to. It's me. It's Ryan Fitzpatrick. And then he's not any good. The Jets lost to Miami last week because Fitzpatrick just threw up a jump ball, and he also threw a interception to a big old lineman. And at least Geno Smith, he's had experience. He had playing time before. Now the real question becomes, do they go to their next quarterback? Petty. And, you're at the bottom of the division. That's 3-6. You gotta try something new, or you might be gone after 2 years. You were just one win away from making the playoffs, and now you're 5 games behind first place. So what's that saying? I think this is really tough. This is going to be really tough. But I think since the Jets are at home, they have a good running back in Matt Forte. They can rely, Petty could rely on him if they decide to switch. And I think I got to go with the home team in this one. The Rams are just so inconsistent. I don't know even how Todd Gurley's doing. He exploded last year. I barely have heard his name all year this year. So I gotta go with the Jets. And this is a tough one. I think this one could go either way. So Jets, Jets, you better win. That's all I gotta say. Yeah, the Rams are 29th in the league with averaging 77.3 yards per game. So what is Todd Gurley doing? 451 yards rushing. So moving on. Atlanta at Philly. I mean, Philly. Ever since you beat Minnesota, you have disappointed me. I mean, I don't know what to say. You are the home team here. You do have a good and better defense. Atlanta, high scoring, high flying. And this is a tough one, to be honest, because it does depend on which Atlanta team shows up. I mean, they lost to Seattle and they lost to San Diego back-to-back weeks. One on the road, one at home. And they lost to the Buccaneers week 1. But then they bounced back with beating Green Bay. Then they went on a bye. And now they go on the road. And I'm leaning towards Atlanta in this one. But I think since Philly is home, I might have to change my pick. And I think I'm going to change my pick. And I'm going with Philly. Since Philly is the home team in this one, I think their defense can bounce back. I mean, in their... Well, I got to take a look. In their 4 losses... I mean, they're 3-0 at home. They're perfect at home. They've only lost on the road. They're 1-4 on the road. And on the ground they go with the running back. And for one of the few times here today,
this run's not going to go anywhere. It's Melvin
Let's
Ingram
see.
on the
Well, they
tackle.
beat Cleveland at home. They beat Pittsburgh at home, and they beat Minnesota at home. And Pittsburgh and Minnesota at the time were good teams. But then when they went on the road, they lost at Dallas. They lost at New York. Both those, the Dallas loss, that was 6 points. The Giants lost, that was 5 points. They lost at Washington, that was 7 points. And at Detroit, that was 1 point. So since Philly's at home, they are 3-0. I have to go with Philly actually in this one. I think Philly will bounce back, and make that race in the East and the wild card just a little more difficult in the NFC side. So best of luck. I mean, Atlanta, you still got the South, so hey, keep it up.
He's averaging just under 50 yards a punt as he gets this away.
Chicago at
This will
Tampa
be up to the
Bay.
ruling of the side judge here.
This is another tricky one.
At the 16-yard
Another
line. The Dolphins defense,
which
they
team
get set
is
to
going
go
to show up,
here.
which
We
Tampa
saw
Bay
field goal to
team
start
is
the
going to show up, and
second
which
half.
Chicago
Now
team is
this
going to
defense
show
gets
up.
stopped.
And because all honesty, I think it's a little disappointing that Chicago had their bye after they finally got that win. Because I think if Chicago had their, like the other way around, say they had their bye, they came back and won that game, I think they would really have momentum on their side. And I mean, there's nothing bigger than beating a divisional foe. Okay. And that's their 2 wins so far is within the division. They're 2-0 or 2-1 in the division. They're at Tampa Bay. Chicago is 0-4 on the road. Tampa Bay is 0-4 at home. So, barring a tie, something's going to give. Either Chicago's going to win a road game or Tampa Bay is going to win at home. Tampa Bay is 3-1 on the road, and Chicago's 2-2 at home. And unless this game ends in a mother clucker of a tie, which would just, grind my gears or pop my top, it's going. It's usually like the other way around. Like one team is, undefeated at home and winless on the road, but not both. Not when both teams show up. And while Tampa Bay is an old divisional rival, back in the when they joined the NFC, they were in the Central, the old Central days. And you look at the wins, they beat Atlanta. For Tampa Bay, they beat Atlanta, they beat Carolina, and they beat San Francisco. For Chicago, they only beat Detroit and Minnesota. And I think they're on similar paths. But I think Chicago has the momentum though. They got their quarterback back, Jay Cutler. Not saying he's an elite quarterback. Not saying he's a great quarterback. He's a mediocre quarterback, but he can be great at times. And I think being on the sideline, being hurt, see him potentially losing his job to Brian Hoyer motivated him. Not saying I like the guy, but I think Chicago is going to have one up on their old and former divisional rivals. Chicago finally gets their first win on the road, and Tampa Bay stays winless at home.
4 yards remaining now on second down.
And speaking on the road, Minnesota at Washington. I mean, what has happened to these Vikings? They are 0-3 after the bye, but 5-0 before it. At the moment, they're this year's Atlanta Falcons that start the season 5-0 and then start slipping. I mean, they are devastated at offensive line. Their defense is good and great, but the Vikings are just
So they'll get a little
not
extra
there.
time
I
to
mean,
come up with
they're
these
27th in the pass
plays.
game, 31st in the run game, and 32nd in total yards per game. Their offense wasn't really there to begin with at all this season. It was their defense that was carrying them. And now that there's holes in that offensive line, I mean, the Vikings, they're stumbling. It doesn't get easy from here. I mean, they're at Washington this week. They host Arizona. They're at Detroit on Thanksgiving, so that's a short week. And then 1 week later on Thursday Night Football, they host Dallas. I mean, they might finally see a victory when they go to Jacksonville. So, but Washington, they're third in the passing game. They're 14th in the rushing and 4th overall in total yards. And you know, they started the season 0-2, but then they ripped 4 straight wins, but then a loss and a tie. So they're pretty good. And in the next 4 weeks, they host Minnesota, they host Green Bay, they're at Dallas, and they're at Arizona, then they're at Philly. Whew, 3 straight road games for them too later on. But
7 yards on the pickup there, and it'll leave them with a
since it,
that was a good run, probably right on the edge
I
of
mean,
breaking into something really big.
Minnesota's done,
Right now we're talking about,
in my
okay,
opinion.
what can we do?
Especially if that
Slow them
offensive
down
line
before
doesn't
he
protect
truly
their
gets
quarterback. You know, the great Sad Bradford, who's supposed to be the savior now since they gave up 2 draft picks. I mean, at the beginning of the season, it looked like the greatest thing since sliced bread. But now, it's starting to haunt them. But it's not because Sam Bradford isn't producing. It's more or less because of their offensive line isn't there. It's like Swiss cheese. So, since Washington, they're the better team. Sure, they're on a skid too, but they are the better team this week, and Washington beats the Vikings. Vikings fall 5-4, and there might be a 3-way tie for first place in the North. And if that would happen, let's see, within the division, yeah, Green Bay. So if Green Bay wins, Minnesota loses, all 3 teams would be 5-4. And I would say Green Bay would be in first place then, because they are 2-1 within the division, and Minnesota and Detroit are 1-2. Because Minnesota's 1 win against the division is against Green Bay. Detroit's 1 win in the division is against Minnesota. But Green Bay's 2 wins are against the Bears and the Lions, and they've lost to Minnesota. And I mean, the North is all crazy, but after Sunday, we'll see where we're at, if I'm happy or not. So, but I digress. We move on. Next game on the docket, Kansas City at Carolina. This is an interesting matchup. I'm not quite sure who's going to be the starter this week for Kansas City. I mean, they have a big opportunity.
And Lambeau now
Oh.
touchdown. He'll kick this one away.
I don't know if that wasn't. I forget if that was last week or not, but Niall Davis.
And he'll take this
He's
one
back
to the
where he
25,
started,
call it the
like 3 weeks
26-yard
ago.
line.
Gets cut. I think I mentioned this last week. He gets traded to Green Bay, gets cut, gets picked up by the Jets, gets cut, and now he's back with Kansas City because Jamal Charles is hurt. They have a lot of injuries in Kansas City, but let's see.
Now will they keep that confidence? Time to find out.
Well, I think we're going to finally see what type of team Carolina is now. At 3-5, can they pull back, come back, make that comeback, or is Kansas City just that damn good and can make a push for the playoffs and take not sole possession. They be tied for first place in the West. It's a battle of defenses, and I think Kansas City's better. The Panthers aren't as good. I mean, they had the easiest schedule last year, and they went 15-1. Green Bay has the easiest schedule this year, and they're 4-4. But that's always based on the teams from the previous season, and things change. And Carolina, reality check is going to set in, and they're going to fall. Kansas City's going to win. They're going to be in first place in the West. Carolina, Cam Newton. All I got to say is, I'll say this. For that game, I'm just hoping. I'm not a big fan of Cam Newton, but it is kind of BS that the refs aren't calling roughing the passer for him when he's taking a licking. When or what they consider, because Cam Newton's been taking big hits and there's been lesser hits on quarterbacks and they've received roughing the passer penalties. So referees, do your job, please. And I'm not saying I don't like hard-hitting football. I mean, there's plenty of times I've seen hits where, like, I don't see what's wrong with that, but safety, I get it, but safety first. Now let's stop being biased, maybe. But Kansas City over Carolina. That's my pick. And AFC South matchup, Houston at Jacksonville. I mean, this would be huge if Jacksonville can pull the upset. But it'll be a big confidence boost for Houston if they can get the win. The only question becomes what team shows up, you know?
And on the outside, they're playing press coverage.
I mean, Jacksonville just got rid of their offensive coordinator. They still have lost 3 straight games. Houston, they're on a 1-game win streak. I forget who they beat recently. I think they beat Detroit a week ago, and they had their bye last week. Yeah, they just beat Detroit, had their bye. Now they have a 2-game road. They're on the road for 2 games. Houston at Jacksonville, at Oakland, which that game's actually in Mexico. Our last international game of the season. So, I mean, to be honest, if I can get, if Madden has that stadium, I might do that next week. But I don't think so. But Jacksonville on the other hand, they're on a 3-game lose streak. They lost to Oakland, lost Tennessee, and then lost Kansas City. Houston, I think they don't quite know who they are. And boy, Jacksonville ends the season with 3 straight divisional games. And this is their last divisional game until then. And in all honesty, if Jacksonville get a win here, get the spark going, and pull off a few more wins, those 3 games at the end could either make or break. But I just don't see that happening. I think Houston's going to find their identity. They just might find their identity in this game, get the win, get their confidence, and take control of the South and don't look back. So, Houston wins. That's my pick, Houston, for the W. Now, my game of the week. Miami at San Diego. 2 teams, middle of the pack, trying to find who they are. If San Diego was in any other division, they would be fighting for first place. But they're not.
That's a pass he's got to have and a pass
They're in one of the best divisions in the NFL right now with the AFC West.
In a big spot here. He was true on his first.
While
This is a tough one from 49 yards
Miami
away.
is in one of the most lopsided divisions in the NFL,
And it is
in the
good.
AFC East.
Oh, that one looked to be in trouble the whole way.
Because
It does get over the ball.
ever since Tom Brady and company have taken over, have come in, taken over, I don't know how many times they've won the division. I mean, last time someone did not win, team not named the Patriots win the AFC East were these Miami Dolphins in 2008. And that's the last time the Patriots did not make the playoffs. And the Patriots have made the playoffs ever since 2009 onward. And there's only one other team that has made the playoffs 7 straight years as well. And that's my Green Bay Packers. But unlike the Patriots, my Packers always seem like to have a struggle to make the playoffs. And can't win the division always. The Patriots, they look so easy. It's like the Packers and the Patriots have so much in common, but the Patriots make it look easy year in, year out, while the Packers, they struggle. The NFC is very fluctuating, while the AFC is a little more, they know who's the better teams and they know which teams suck. While the NFC, it's a roller coaster ride, but I digress. San Diego, I mean, you look at their losses. Week 1, overtime against KC, they were winning that game. Week 3, they lost by 4. Week 3, week 4, lost by 1. Week 5 by 4. But then, hey, they got a little burst. They beat their division rivals, Denver. They beat Atlanta. Then they lose to Denver. But then they just final score doesn't show it, but they were dominating over Tennessee. And now they take on Miami. Well, Miami in that not tough East, but Miami, it's New England and everybody else. I mean, they can make a showing, make a statement with rolling off their 4th straight win. San Diego, it's going to be tough. They have one more. They have this game, and then they have their bye. And, let's see. Is it Miami? Miami's 0-3 on the road. San Diego, 3-1 at home. And so I think Miami has more of the momentum. They've won 3 in a row. Yes, they head to the road. Tannehill is a decent quarterback, but I think they have to rely on their running game. That's what makes. If you do not have a running game, you don't have a passing game, because you won't fool anybody. If you pass it all the time, it's nothing new. So I mean, both teams have great running games. I mean, I'm so happy for Melvin Gordon after having a crappy rookie season. He's finally making a statement this year. I'm so happy for him, especially from Wisconsin. I'm hoping he's finally that Wisconsin running back to finally make a name in the NFL. While the other ones like Monte Ball, Ron Dane, haven't quite had that success. I mean, James White silently, like James White, Michael Bennett, when he for Minnesota back in the day, they had silent but successful careers. So, but I mean, that bigger name, like Ron Dane, former Heisman Trophy winner, Monte Ball, now Melvin Gordon, that have this high-profile name. Not saying James White wasn't high-profile, not saying Michael Bennett wasn't, but gotta get that bigger name. But coming back to this game, I just think, well, I'm going to stick with Miami. This one could go either way, in my opinion.
So the run moves the chains, and here we go on first down.
And I don't think it will be because San Diego slips up that they'll find a way to lose.
On 1st and 10, Tannehill.
I just think Miami is going to find a way to win.
And he's brought down.
So
It's a pickup
I
for
pick Miami
15
in this
and a
one.
fresh set of downs.
We move on to San Francisco at Arizona. And
big time run, big time pass.
A 1-2 combination. Looked
I don't know
pretty
what
good.
to say about San Francisco. I mean, in my opinion, it was a big old mistake to get under Harbaugh's skin, but I think Harbaugh, he's more of a college coach. San Francisco's 0-3 on the road, while Arizona's 2-2-1 at home.
On first down, Tannehill.
And
Going deep
I don't think I'm going to dwell on this game much. I feel like Arizona's the better team. They're the better, well-rounded team.
Today's receivers in the NFL,
And
they're the complete
since
package.
Arizona's home,
We know they can
Arizona
run, we know
wins.
they can catch, but they have those big frames now. So
Dallas
oftentimes they
at
just out-physical guys
Pittsburgh.
downfield and go up and catch the football. And we saw
This
big
is
gains
going
as
to
a
be a
result of that
fun
play.
one. And in all honesty, this might end up being, well, Dak Prescott's biggest game and Ezekiel Elliott's biggest game of the season. It is, in my opinion, at the moment. Yes, they suffered that Week 1 loss, but, Week 1, it's hard to tell what teams are like Week 1.
They'll set up the screen. This is Williams.
And they've
they've
had some close games in recent weeks. Dallas, I mean, they lost Week 1,
I thought that might break
but
big.
Week 2, tough one,
Screen
but they
plays.
took
Looked
care
like
of
it was coming
business. They
together.
came back.
Looked like
No,
there
I
was
don't
an
even know if they
opening.
came back.
Still,
They took care of business. They
solid
beat
game.
Washington when it mattered. Chicago, piece of cake. San Francisco, piece of cake. Cincinnati, piece of cake. Green Bay, piece of cake. But after the bye, Philly's been their big real test since Week 1, I would want to say. But they hold on and they force overtime and they won. Last week, they took care of business at Cleveland because Cleveland, the Browns suck. But here you have Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh they are 3-1 at home. Their only loss so far at home has been against the New England Patriots. And otherwise, their home games, Cincinnati, that was a 8-point win. Kansas City, they destroyed Kansas City 43-14 at home. And then the following week, they destroyed the Jets at home 31-13. But they are on a 3-game skid. But that was at Miami. You look at their losses. At Philadelphia, they were embarrassed.
And that's exactly what he did.
At Miami, embarrassed again. They're a totally different team on the road. At home, they lost by 11 against New England, but New England is New England.
Looks like the defense in press coverage here.
And then at Baltimore, divisional game by 7. So, but they're hosting Dallas. This will be a big test, big real test.
8 yards here, so that gets him back within
And
striking distance.
if
And now it's
Ezekiel
3rd down.
Elliott can start running
And that's the kind of
all
run that
over,
gets everyone
if they
excited
can get
on
that run
offense.
game going and
oftentimes
take care of
the
business,
guys
I
who
think
carry the ball,
I
the
think
ones
Dallas will win.
doing the chirping. Right now, I think it's the offensive line
Pittsburgh,
telling
we're
them, "Run it
not
again.
quite
We
sure
are
what
right
Pittsburgh
there
is. I mean,
about
they
to
are
get
the
big
better
one."
home
Now
team
play
and
number
crappy on the
7 in
road.
this drive,
But
it's a tough 3rd and 9.
I think Dallas, they come into town, and I think it'll be a close one though. Maybe one 10-point difference, but I think Dallas wins. Okay, Sunday Night Football. This is the rematch of Super Bowl 49. Seattle at New England. And I think it's reality check time for Seattle. Because I don't know how they do it. Year in, year out, ever since Pete Carroll got there, they just know how they just find ways to win at the end, especially since Russell Wilson was there. has gotten to Seattle. They just found ways at the end of the game to win. But they go in a hostile environment on Sunday Night Football against Bill Belichick and Tom Brady.
They thought they were going to have a chance to cash in the end zone.
And
now it looks like it's likely a field goal attempt.
I think
Frank's kick is good.
reality's going to set in. It's a game against two coaches I really don't care, but I'm going to go with experience over luck. And the question is, who's going to pay the refs off more? But I got to go with New England in this one just because they are the home team. I would be impressed if, Seattle should have beat them in the Super Bowl. Seattle should have won that game. But one dumb move, Patriots win. So, and this is going to be a close one, I think. But it just depends on how well Seattle uses Jimmy Graham. So, New England is my pick. New England wins. And last but not least, Monday Night Football. We have the Cincinnati Bengals against the New York Football Giants. At least the Giants know where they're going. They're getting better. Cincinnati, they're still a question. I mean, they've had their bye. Their last game they played ended in a tie. They're at New York, and they are 1-3 on the road. While the Giants, on the other hand, they are 3-1 at home. So they have the home field advantage. Cincinnati's not been the same team on the road, but week 1 they were in the same stadium at the MetLife Stadium, and they beat the Jets by 1 point. So they might have some confidence, but the Giants, they've, after starting the season 2-0, losing 3 straight, they've won 3 in a row, and momentum's on their side. They have 2 more. Oh wow, they had 3 straight home games. They have 2 more home games against the Bengals and the. Oh man, the Giants. Let's looking at the Giants. Cincinnati, Chicago, at Cleveland. Then here's a little turbulence at Pittsburgh, hosting Dallas. But last 3, Detroit, at Philly, at Washington. I mean, I think there's at least 10, maybe 11 wins in there for New York. But Cincinnati on the other side, they've been up and down. They win, lose 2, win, lose 2, win, tie. 5. They're at New York to take on the Giants. Then they host the Bills, at Baltimore, host Philly, at Cleveland. Wow, it's back and forth. They start a season at home, at home, and then they alternate the rest of the season. But I think Cincinnati does, but I think New York, the Giants, they are the better team. Just like the Cowboys, the Giants are finding their identity. Excuse me, when it matters. And so I have to go with the Giants in this one. I think, but no, Giants. So there you go. Those are my picks. Let's see if I can keep a winning record. I'm already 1-0, thanks you, Baltimore. But it's more like thank you, Cleveland, for being Cleveland. So, anyways, we're under 2 minutes left in the game. San Diego with a 1-point lead. And Miami, what is it? It's 2nd and 6. If they can make Miami use up their timeouts. Ooh, did he get the first down? That's what matters. Because clock management is always so important.
The defense, they get
Oh,
a bit
third
of
and
a
inches. That's
breather.
good.
Now they're back
Because if
and set as we resume play.
San Diego just needs a first down, San Diego gets the first down, game's over. Miami will use their last timeout. Three kneel downs, game is over. San Diego wins. And Madden's credibility will be on the line. So, we'll see. We'll see. I know I think Miami is the better team, to be honest. I think now that they got momentum going. Well, in all honesty, I think San Diego's the better team. San Diego is so underrated. They just lose somehow.
And on third
But
down, a nickel formation here defensively.
here we go. Handoff.
Here's Gordon.
First down. They'll give it to him, right?
Timeout called by
Yeah,
the
first and
defense.
10. San Diego.
Final stoppage
We
here
are
as we step
3
aside.
kneel downs away from the end of this game. And we are 1 week, we're just
So
a
defensive
few days away to
chance
see
regather,
if
regroup,
Madden
and get set as we resume action.
has its first winning record at 6-5 after 10 weeks and 11 games. So I think this will be a good game to watch. A sleeper for some.
Offense
But
comes to the line now, first
both
and
these
10.
teams, I mean, San Diego's trying re-youth.
They come out here in the
Oh, why are they in run formation? They don't need to run the ball. They don't need a first down.
And he'll be taken down across the 50
So,
at the
I don't know.
45
Man
in enemy
confuses
territory.
me sometimes. It's like,
Well, certainly running the ball
all they
pretty
gotta do
well
is take
this
knees.
drive, and all I remember as a secondary guy was if you're making a lot of tackles in a game, that's usually not good for your defense.
So,
you got to figure out how to keep things in front of you. 'Cause
I don't
there's
know.
3 levels. Defensive line,
We'll see if they take
linebackers,
knees, see how much they speed up the clock. Yeah, there we go.
Tackles. As a general rule, things aren't going so well for your defense.
And they line up. God.
Running right, it's a handoff.
I hope they
And
fumble
for
it.
One of the few times here today, this run's not going to go anywhere.
That I hope Miami
It's gonna
causes
go
a
with
fumble
loss of
just
yard,
because.
and it'll be second down.
I don't know about you, partner, but I'm rubbing my eyes after that play.
But
Did we just see that runner not get yardage? A big-time play by the defense. It does happen occasionally, even against the best running backs.
Week
who are having
10.
big days.
It's sad. It's like every time after the Super Bowl, everyone's can't wait for the next season of football because their team lost, so forth. And now, football starts and you can't believe how fast it goes. Oh, now they're in victory formation.
Kneel down here from Rivers, and that should be it.
I mean, we need to see those last 2 rushes. Maybe they just want to give Melvin Gordon 200 yards rushing. So that's the final. That will be the
Ninth play of
final.
The drive coming up, and certainly not an easy one on 3rd and long.
2-1. It's the game. San Diego.
And Charles, I think when the
San
schedule
Diego
comes
wins.
Out, all teams,
They
no
find a
matter where
way.
they're predicted to finish,
Here's
talk
the
about
miracle.
protecting your home turf. They were able to do
Probably
that
one of
here
their
in this
last
one.
home
Similar to a
games
tennis match,
that
right?
they'll win.
Not letting them
Just
break your
remember,
serve.
folks,
That way you
the
hold on
people
to
of
it.
San
They
Diego
got it
County
done,
did
and
not
they
want
feel
to
very
approve.
good about
And I
that
don't
victory.
blame some of those people. Probably not sports fans. Economy's tough, especially out in California. So it's going to be sad that, hey, their team's probably going to move up north to LA. But it is what it is. So there you have it. Here's some highlights. I really think this is going to be a good game. I think there'll be some surprises and some upsets in Week 10. I mean, I may not have leaned that way in my picks, but don't overpass Pittsburgh over Dallas and Seattle, New England. I'm sure most people don't want to see either team win because you got the bandwagons of the West
So
taking
that'll
on
do
the
it for my partner, Charles
evil
Davis,
empire
and
of the
best
East.
darn crew in
So
the industry. I'm Brandon Gaudin. This has been a presentation.
We'll
of the
see,
NFL
we'll
on
see. Madden
EA Sports.
picks San Diego
Chargers
over
are winners
Miami.
here as we say so
That's
long
going to
from
do it for
Southern
me.
California.
So, thanks for watching. Tune in next week, and see how successful Madden is, if he finally makes over that hump or not. So, thanks again. Until next time, see ya.